rumble of the discourse. We've taken an abandoned concrete factory at the margins of the declining American empire and repurposed it into a battleground where 19 separate entities from across the political spectrum enter the discourse one by one and do battle to determine who controls the narrative force of the discourse. I hope you'll join me, your Southern Gothic futurist host Dirk God Raven Mac, for each and every episode of Monday Night Rumble of the Discourse. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. We're back for another Monday Night Rumble of the Discourse. Our 27 competitors, just like last week, will come out. You know the deal. Most of you have seen this before. If you haven't for the first time, just watch and you'll understand it. They accumulate points. This is our second week in our Spring 2026 series. So this will go for the next 7 weeks. This is week 2, so I guess the next 6 weeks, actually. We're at our abandoned concrete factory at the edge of town. Last week, Luigi Mangione won it, but they're accumulating points towards our 7th week finale here, which will happen next month. We'll crown a champion of the discourse for spring 2026. And in fact, sponsorship, we are sponsored tonight, I'm sad to say actually, by an entity called No More Luigi's. There was some concern about the fact that we glorified the violence, the political violence, the corporate violence of Luigi last week, and I got a sponsorship, and from what I understand, Luigi is going to be banned from the Rumble until the final. So Luigi will qualify for the final. We do have a process here. He already qualified with those 12 points he got last week. But we're probably not going to see Luigi until that final, from my understanding. I didn't agree with this sponsorship. My producer, Bob Dabalina, pushed it through. And in fact, let's go ahead and look at those standings after last week. You can see Luigi is at the top. He's going to hang tight with those 12 points until the final. Gavin Newsom is up there. A whole bunch of other folks. But you know what? Let's go ahead and head on up to the ring. And our referees tonight, you can see, are Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court judge, and Jamel Bowie, the New York Times op-ed writer. Of course, Jamel is, if the Stuff White People Like website was still going, Jamel would probably be on there. And coming out first is Donald Trump, the mad king of the declining American empire, and he's coming out first. He said he wanted to come out first tonight, and here comes J.D. Vance, and this is what Trump wanted. Trump wanted to humble his vice president. He wanted to start this thing with the two of them, one-on-one, mano a mano, so to speak. Of course, Peter Thiel, the puppet who was controlling J.D. Vance's every move over the last decade, including the ghostwriting, hiring a ghostwriter for that book and the one that'll be upcoming, also biting bell hook style, if you don't know. J.D. Vance is being positioned as the next heir apparent for the MAGA empire, which is pretty idiotic. I mean, but the MAGA empire is idiotic. Trump is the king of that right now with his cult of personality. Unexplainable cult of personality to somebody on the outside like myself. Vance has Trump locked up in a headlock, giving him some punches to the old noggin there. Hitting that old noggin, which it doesn't need any more shots, man. That noggin is struggling enough through a cognitive fog and decline. It does not need any more shots. But Vance is not holding back and giving it to him. So we're going to have 25 other people come out here one by one. Trump up. Big suplex on Vance. And coming out next, Gerrymander. Of course, Gerrymander been big figure in the discourse last week with the referendum in Virginia, and then Trump just gave up to a headlock by Vance. I guess that cognitive decline is further along than we realized. But, of course, Gerrymander in the news last week with the referendum in Virginia, and then with the Supreme Court ruling pretty much destroying the Voting Rights Act. Gerrymander back in the news this week as Louisiana immediately worked to redistrict, and basically they strangely said every state in the South should redistrict so that there aren't black districts. That essentially is what the Republicans are saying, and what is just as racist as you can be while acting like it's not racist. And Vance going for a pin on, well, he didn't get him, and coming out as Nick Fuentes, the young online influencer, extreme right-wing dirtbag piece of shit. Nick Fuentes comes out. Of course, he's had a larger effect on the discourse than I think anybody realizes or would feel comfortable with. He is far more extreme, open in his love of fascism, not necessarily a believer in the electoral politics or even some of the stuff. And then look, J.D. Vance eliminated that extremism for now, eliminates Nick Fuentes. I doubt he eliminated him from his browser history, but he eliminated him from the ring here tonight. So we have Gerrymander and J.D. Vance are still in there, and we get a buzzer. And I guess continuing the trend of young political influencers that I know very little about, here comes Hassan Piker. He has been portrayed as the left counterpart to Nick Fuentes and just as dangerous, which is odd to me because the right-wing extreme perspective is I would like black people to not be able to vote and brown people to be deported, whereas the extreme left-wing version is I think the wealthy should pay taxes. Like that's an odd juxtaposition of equivalency. But also, I don't know anything about Hassan Piker because I tend to avoid anything labeled as a Twitch influencer. Streaming influencers are not my bag, but you know what, man? I'm in my 50s. They shouldn't be in my bag. And looky here, Barron Trump is out. Barron Trump has entered it. Of course, Barron Trump in college, younger version, probably the most ominous of all of Trump's children. I know, and Vance got tossed by Hassan Piker over there on the far end of the ring. I know that Don Jr. gets a lot of the attention, and Eric is seen as the dim-witted one. And the daughters don't count; they're not real to Trump. Only the sons are. But Barron, the youngest, Melania's son, he is a bizarre one. And I have to inform you, unfortunately, I've become made aware of a conspiracy going online that Barron Trump is actually a time traveler that has come from a previous century, that there are signs of in children's stories from a previous century, and that Barron Trump is going to ultimately carry out the MAGA vision. So, yes, that's on the internet. Speaking of being on the internet and extremely online, here comes the Blue Sky Communist. Deeply embedded in the discourse as always. Blue Sky Communist over the weekend was complaining about farming. Of course, I don't know that he's ever farmed at all. I mean, maybe PH farmed, but I don't know how much he knows about actual, like, large-scale agribusiness. But the Blue Sky Communist is out here. He's going right after Hassan Piker. Gerrymander still out there. Gerrymander, that's a strange outfit, I guess, because he judges the future of America. He's wearing that referee shirt. And he just nails the Blue Sky Communist, and gerrymandering just eliminated the Blue Sky Communist. And here comes Pete Hegseth. Of course, had an interesting week last week, testifying in Congress in a belligerent way that sounded more like a Fox News broadcast. Any question about what he was doing was countered with, what about Biden? Which is very odd defense. Like, what about the previous president from a couple years ago? Like, how would you, like, I mean, it's a completely different Congress. Like, what? It's just a strange thing going on with these guys. And Hassan Piker eliminates Gerrymander, so maybe these younger level Twitch influencing streamers can make a difference. Gerrymander just got eliminated. So we've got Secretary of War Pete Hegseth out there, Barron Trump, and Hassan Piker. Wow, that's gross. And we get a buzzer, and coming out, May Day, of course, was last Friday. We have a old school Black Panther. So there are still some of these Black Panthers out here. When you want examples of praxis of socialism, there is no better example in American history than Black Panthers groups who organized a lot of community things around the country. Of course, they were known for, you know, they were media-wise known for standing with guns, but they really organized a lot of meals, free meals for community, mutual aid. They were doing mutual aid before mutual aid was a term people knew about. Black Panthers, definitely, some of these old school folks are good to listen to, especially the women, because a lot of the men were put in jail or assassinated, for lack of a better term, but a lot of these women are still out here, and we have one in there. She just nails Pete Hegseth. And we got a buzzer, and coming out is Laura Loomer, the extremely online crazy woman who has Trump's ear, and Barron Trump just eliminated Hassan Piker, so Hassan Piker is gone. Laura Loomer, just a very batty, extremely online woman who for some reason has an ear straight to Trump, even though she's not qualified to really speak on anything except for her eyebrows being too damn tight across her forehead. But she's got that old school Black Panther in a headlock and punching her. Barron Trump still in there. Pete Hegseth saluting Laura Loomer for some reason. You can see that ladder in there. We have 7 ladders around the ring. They represent the meritocracy myth in American culture. And we get a buzzer. And another one, I guess, since May Day was last Friday, we have the third party communists. Third party communists, of course, always wanting to be on the ballot as a third party candidate, which has increasingly been stigmatized and deemed a distraction to democracy, which again, I will never understand how you think having more choices makes democracy worse. Like, that is just one of the most ass backwards ways of thinking I think there is. Now, I get electoral politics limits us to 2 parties allegedly. I would say that's more a flaw with our electoral system than it is a flaw with third parties, to be honest. And I would rather someone say, hey, let's maybe have ranked choice voting, let's do something different than say third parties are a bad thing, especially when the 2 parties we have are what we have, because neither one is really all that great. And coming out now, the podcast grifter. Of course, he's either given the talking points to stick with the script or he follows the lead of others, but he is always looking to have that briefcase you see right there full of the money that comes to a good, successful podcast grifter, and he immediately rolls up Barron Trump, but doesn't even get a count. And Laura Loomer climbing a ladder on top of an office chair in the ring for some reason. A little bit of everything happens here at Champion of The Discourse in our abandoned concrete factory at the edge of town. I'm going to wait for our next person to come out here in a few seconds, and then I'll reset the field what we have. Getting a little bit more crowded in there. But we get a buzzer. And coming out to join us, Alex Jones, the InfoWars guy, which does not own the InfoWars website anymore, is now owned by The Onion, and they're trying to make it a bastion for trans content. But Alex Jones is still out here doing his shtick. He's got his political wrestling gimmick that he kayfabes and holds on to, and he's, of course, swerving off of MAGA-ism, because that's, the future of the grift is not going to be MAGA aligned. They've kind of burned their outsider status, just like Obama did, burning that outsider going to be something different status, although he did it in a much more tolerable way than MAGA. Alex Jones pulling the swerve. And I talked too long about Alex Jones. I didn't get to reset the field, and we have another person coming out of the buzzer, and it's Tucker Carlson. Speaking of swerving for the grift, Tucker Carlson has really gone against MAGA, but not in a way that really shows any redemption or change of spirit, mostly about how MAGA hadn't fulfilled the bullshit that he wanted it to fulfill. So just to reset from the... Oh, man, what a gross bunch. We have the podcast grifter, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Laura Loomer. Ugh. The third-party communist is out there, that old-school Black Panther woman, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and Barron Trump, alleged time traveler Barron Trump, in his 2026 version. He's in there. The ladder goes down. We got bodies everywhere. There's a pin on Barron, but he kicks out, and we get a buzzer. And who's going to come join this mess? Hey, look, it's the big oaf senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. Always causing trouble, voting against what his party would hope he would. I even heard there were rumors that Trump was trying to recruit him to flip parties, which would be kind of hilarious, actually, because Fetterman would be just as tormenting to the Republicans as he would be the Democrats. He's just a wild card. Once he had a stroke and suffered that cognitive effect of that, but also just, you should never trust a gentrifier. Like, anybody gentrifying a space, well, he pins Laura Loomer, so I appreciate Fetterman for that. But anybody who gentrifies a space with street murals is more concerned with land values than the people. So never forget that. Never trust a gentrifier. And speaking of people not to trust, here comes the Senate candidate from Maine, Graham Plattner. Of course, Susan Collins dropped out of the primary last week. Long-term Senator Susan Collins was getting handled by Plattner and dropped out. And Plattner, allegedly a step to a more progressive vision, but also he's a guy who worked for Blackwater, loves military history, and had a Nazi tattoo, which it took him a while to get around to covering up. Annie, you know, one thing I'll say about people who cover up old, fucked up tattoos is if they cover it up with something that looks nice, I don't trust their repentance. If they cover it up with just all black, marking it out, that's true repentance. That is a true sign of somebody who has understood the mistake they made and want that black mark on their body to recognize that. Just kind of covering it up with something that looks cool, that's pretending it never happened. So that's a red flag for you right there. Coming out to hit the ring is the New York Times op-ed writer who'll probably be turning Plattner into a figure to respect, and Plattner just drives that old school Black Panther socialist down and pins her. And of course that is the purpose of a false progressive choice like Graham Plattner, is to eliminate true progressive choices, and that might be the reason he's in there. And Barron Trump just got pinned by Fetterman, so as much as I don't like Fetterman, he's taken out Loomer and Barron Trump so far. So he's I don't know, man, he might be earning my vote for most favorite performer tonight. So back to Plattner, he's wearing that baseball hat and that LL Bean vest that lets you know he's a man of the working people, because he's wearing expensive stuff and is a lobster fisherman because he comes from a certain amount of money. And I don't know, man, what the hell are we even doing? Elon Musk has stumbled on out, and the less I can say about him, the better. That idiot, of course, was testifying this past week about something or other, and I saw some clips of it. Screenshots of the testimony, and he's a real dumbass. He's one of those guys that is, maybe smarter than an idiot, and that makes him think he's a genius, but he is just a real dumbass, actually. But when you're a kind of dumbass billionaire, that makes you the smartest guys in most of the rooms you're in, because you surround yourself with people who want to pretend that you're the smartest so that they can siphon off those billions. And speaking of siphoning off billions, here comes the ICE goon. DHS just finally passed a resolution to continue without deportation funding. I don't really know how they did all that crap. They probably did a bunch of bullshit. They're still out here harassing people. You still see ICE arresting people left and right. They're maybe not making the news for things like they did. And then that ICE goon is on there. And then Alex Jones just got tossed. We'll have to go to the video replay. Bob, you want to check that out? Bob Dabalina will go to the video replay, make sure we give the right credit for a point for elimination. But Alex Jones is gone. So that ICE goon, of course, still out here creating damage. And he comes off the top rope and doesn't really hit that op-ed writer, but kind of gets him. And coming to the ring, the immigrant behind the ICE goon. So the immigrant comes out after the ICE goon. I like that reverse order. It's like the mouse chasing the cat. Alex Jones blocking the aisle, still mad, throws his camera down. So the immigrant comes out and joins. We have the ICE goon, Elon Musk, New York Times op-ed writer, Senate candidate Graham Plattner, Senator John Fetterman, Tucker Carlson, the podcast grifter, Pete Hegseth, and the third-party communist. And for some reason, there is a chair on top of the ladder with a ladder on top of the chair, and Jamel Bowie had set that up, and then it all comes tumbling down, and the immigrant gets a 2 count. Just a 2 count on that third-party communist, and then Elon Musk gets a 2 count on Hegseth. And now here comes Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader of the House, hoping to be majority speaker of the House, but already came out last week saying if they get majority, he's not going to look to impeach Trump, and that's a weird flex. They're going to talk about affordability, which, granted, affordability is an issue, but I think open fascism and corruption of all our systems is a little bit bigger of an issue. I'd like to see Hakeem just say, look, man, we're not only... Tucker Carlson got tossed. No, he got pinned by that third-party communist over there. And then the ICE goon got tossed while I was looking at that. I didn't even see who tossed the ICE goon. So a couple quick eliminations. But Hakeem Jeffries, I kind of wish they would be coming out saying, look, man, we're not only going for impeachment, we're going for prison time and, man, even execute some of these people. Well, here comes Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, of course, and the immigrant got tossed out there. The immigrant is gone. Sad to see that. I like that guy. He's a good dude. When I talk to people backstage, he's a good dude. Mike Johnson comes out. Of course, he's been instrumental in executing a lot of this bullshit. Of course, there was multiple Speaker of the House elections before he got elected, and they finally rammed him through the group. And Mike Johnson is just great example of a completely soulless person who pretends to be a Christian. Of course, he's trying to redistrict those things in Louisiana, and that New York Times op-ed writer just got kicked off the top. He was on the outside of the ring, and he got kicked off. And we got a buzzer and coming out. It's AOC. Now look, man, I don't pretend anybody in Congress is all that great, but I would have a little bit more faith in a democratic, unified effort that was led by AOC than one led by Hakeem Jeffries. At least AOC tries to call people to task. Hakeem Jeffries is just weaselly and impotent, but he gets the donations, and ultimately that is the point. The Democratic Party is not a party for the people. It is a party for fundraising and keeping the goblets full of fine wine. Maybe the goblets aren't as gold gilded as the Republican Party, and they use fancy crystal instead of gold gilded gaudy bullshit, but both of them are just trying to keep those goblets full. And here comes the free thinker who hadn't had a free thought in a while. Graham Plattner got pinned in there by Hakeem Jeffries, so Jeffries showing what his purpose is. So if Graham Plattner is a step to the left, as he claims to be, then Hakeem Jeffries will certainly reel that in. Him and Chuck Schumer will make sure that doesn't have any effect. And that was a long 2 count on Hegseth, pinned by AOC, and then Fetterman got pinned over there by Jeffries. So Jeffries is just taking out any stray dog Democrats he can find. So it looks like we have Pete Hegseth is still in there. He's been in there for a long time. That third-party communist is hanging tough. Podcast Grifter is still out there. Unfortunately, Elon is still out there. Hakeem Jeffries, Mike Johnson, and AOC, all three Congress folk, and the free thinker, and coming to join them. Well, I said I would stop calling them the No Kings shit lib. I would stop using shit lib. The No Kings liberals out here organized some Mayday protests and strike. The strike wasn't super well known, but they did do it to a certain extent. That No Kings liberal. I promised them during last season, actually, that I would stop using the shit lib term for them. I'm actually on a blue sky block list for using the shit lib. People who are idiot, mindless liberals who just want to block anybody who thinks less of them have a block list. Which that's one of the great things about Blue Sky. You can block everybody who's a fucking dumbass. Well, you can try to. It's impossible to block all dumbasses on social media. And we got to buzzer our next to last person coming out. It's going to be John Roberts. John Roberts of the Supreme Court, of course, long-term instrumental in breaking up that Voting Rights Act that they did last week and making it so that they can redistrict however they want. John Roberts, evil, ominous Supreme Court member. And I will just let you have that reminder that the Supreme Court members serve until they die or resign. And, you know, there are ways for people to die at any time. I kind of feel like having to gamble on when somebody resigns and who's president is kind of a weird flex anyways. I feel like every presidential election you should just get one Supreme Court justice. You just get one, not more than one, just one. And our last entrance tonight, thinly veiled racism. So thinly veiled racism has entered the discourse tonight. Of course, thinly veiled racism has been part of the discourse pretty heavily for the past decade. And he's got that pipe. And he's going at it. So we have 11 folks in here. Nobody else coming out. These are our 11. We've got Thinly veiled racisms from the Supreme Court, John Roberts, with Clarence Thomas as one of the refs, so that should be interesting. The No Kings liberal, the free thinker, out of Congress, AOC, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, the podcast grifters out there, the third-party communist is still out there, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and the podcast grifter, still hanging tough. So these are our final 11. Of course, the final 4 will get bonus points, and they get a point for anybody they eliminate, so you want to stack up eliminations best you can. Thinly veiled racism beating on Pete Hegseth over there. Elon slammed facebuster by a No Kings liberal. Now that No Kings liberal is locking up with Pete Hegseth on the far side. And Hegseth just drops her with a sidewalk slam, goes for a pin, gets a 1 count. Roberts going for a pin. Chief Justice Roberts pins Mike Johnson, so takes care of Mike Johnson. A little, I'm not sure what that's about, but Mike Johnson is eliminated, and we are down to 10. Pete Hegseth and thinly veiled racism in a tested strength. Of course, thinly veiled racism seems to be winning that, but Pete Hegseth seeing if he is stronger than thinly veiled racism or not. Looks like that free thinker has been busted open. He's pretty bloody. Looks like that podcast grift has been busted open. He's all bloody out there. We got an especially violent discourse this week, it looks like. I'm fine with that. I'm not one of those who's opposed to political violence. I don't think it's the best situation. It's usually a sign that the politics is bad if you have political violence, but guess what? The politics is bad right now. And there is a pin. Podcast grifter pins that third-party communist, so the podcast grifter eliminates that third-party communist. Had a pretty good showing, actually. She was out there for a while. Strong Mayday showing, so we're down to 9. There's a 2 count. Thinly veiled racism tossed on the far side. I didn't see who flung him. I think that might have been Elon, but thinly veiled racism tossed, so we're down to 8. Now there are 8 left. Elon over the top rope, but he gets back in. And then Elon tossed in that ladder by John Roberts. Pete Hegseth been out there for a long time, but hadn't eliminated anybody, so he hadn't gotten any points. So that's sort of testament to what's going on in Iran, actually. A long engagement without any wins. And he suplexes that No Kings liberal, and John Roberts goes for the pin, but a kick out at 2 2/4. Well, that would be 1/2. Whatever, 2/4. AOC rolls up the podcast grifter 2 count. So our final 8, Pete Hegseth, the podcast grifter, Elon Musk. Well, and podcast grifter just got tossed, so we're down to 7. And there's a long 2 count over there on the far side. And then Hegseth over the top rope. And he looks bloody now too. But he gets back in. So we got Pete Hegseth, Elon Musk, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, and John Roberts just got eliminated. So we're down to 6. The free thinker and the No Kings liberal fill out those 6. So Supreme Court Justice John Roberts eliminated. Nice move off top rope by that No Kings liberal and Elon. She goes for the pin, and that's a 1, that's a 2, but Elon kicks out, and then Hegseth's hitting her in the back. Hegseth's been out there a real long time. And then another sweet move on Elon. And she goes for a quick pin, and still only a 1 count. Got knocked off by the free thinker, and Pete Hegseth beaten by Hakeem Jeffries. So Hegseth is finally eliminated, doesn't get any points tonight, lasts a long time without any points. That's Pete Hegseth for you, pretty useless. Not even beneficial to the discourse for his own purposes. So we're down to 5. Next person eliminated to be the last one out before our bonuses start going out. 4th place gets 3 points. 3rd place gets 5 points. 2nd place gets 7, and the winner will get 10. Of course, all these folks are going to be trying to get those bonus points. There's a roll-up on AOC by the free thinker, and that's a 2.5. No Kings liberal setting up one of those meritocracy myth ladders. Again, your reminder, your referees are Jamel Bowie and Clarence Thomas over there on the far side. Oh, nice move on Hakeem Jeffries by the free thinker. Then AOC's locked up with Hakeem. Elon just fell off that office chair. Free thinker kicked off that top rope and takes a hard tumble. Probably could have been pinned if somebody had got on him. That No Kings liberal and AOC going at it. So we've got the No Kings liberal, AOC, and Hakeem Jeffries out there. So they could be unified. The free thinker out there, I guess you could say, is an independent, I guess. And Elon Musk, the controller of the X algorithm. Of course, X has shown that it moves people rightward. It makes people become more right-wing, like scientifically, not because of being exposed to ideas, but just straight up moves you that way. Of course, it's also being shown as far less effective in terms of marketing and engagement, but people will ignore that because there's a lot of people there, and it looks like you're getting a lot of statistics, even though that's probably manipulated data that shows you. Kind of hard to trust a salesman when he tells you how many people you've reached. Excuse me. That office chair gets set back up by Elon. Again, we have 5 people here. We got a long one tonight, don't we, Bob? AOC has Elon in a hole. Hakeem Jeffries and Freethinker going at it. No Kings liberal came flying off that ladder and halfway hit some folks. Elon is busted open now, so he's been busted up, but he rolls up that No Kings liberal just a 1 count. Roll up by Elon and Freethinker back and forth. They actually knocked Clarence Thomas out, so nobody can count. There's a count, 2, and that just 2 on Elon. I really appreciate seeing him eliminated before the bonuses. Not a big fan of Elon. Not a big fan of the discourse, personally. I don't know why I'm forced to do this. It feels like some sort of punishment. But especially don't like Elon. Of course, it is a myth that he ruined X. Twitter had already been ruined. The algorithm had already been manipulated. Of course, he put, instead of putting a thumb on the algorithm, he put a whole heavy hand on it. But it had already been ruined, so don't let anybody tell you that he ruined it. He was the sucker who bought it after it had been ruined. And he's going for a pin on Hakeem Jeffries there. Oh, man, and Elon eliminates Hakeem Jeffries. Not that I like Hakeem Jeffries, but I didn't want Elon to make the Final Four. And he rolls up Freethinker in just a 2 count. Excuse me. So we have our Final Four. Elon Musk, the billionaire, AOC, and Elon over the top rope. He's looking groggy. He grabs that microphone and gets back in. Elon Musk, the AOC, the Freethinker, and the No Kings liberal, and there's a pin on AOC. And Clarence Thomas makes the count from the chair, and AOC is eliminated, so she finishes 4th and gets 3 bonus points, so we are down to 3 now. The final 3. And perhaps this is metaphorical for the discourse. You have the free thinker who is allegedly an independent free thinker, questionable. You have the No Kings liberal who is trying to maybe reach more people, maybe preach to the converted already, I don't know. And then you have Elon Musk, who is the algorithm master, the one of the oligarchs of online disinformation manipulation. So how do you reach the people who might still be reachable? Do you do it through honest engagement in real life, or do you do it through online mechanisms? And can you even reach those people? Are people now sort of brainwashed and channeled into their specific filter bubble that they can't escape? And then if that's the case, then you only compete with the propaganda with, well, propaganda. So the only thing that can stop a bad guy with incredibly effective propaganda is a good guy with incredibly effective propaganda. But then begs the question, are you actually a good person if you're using incredibly effective propaganda? Honestly, from my perspective, most of capitalism's marketing, like every advertisement you see, is just effective propaganda. It's all neurological. It's not psychological. We don't have free will when we're tricked into like chasing our addiction to dopamine and serotonin, when we rush out and buy things that we can't afford really and don't need and won't last long enough to justify. Yeah, it's all a sham, folks. We are living in a collapse of a giant scheme. It's not The Matrix. That movie is pretty overrated, but it is pretty disgusting. And there's a pin on Elon by the free thinker. Jamel Bowie, slow to make the count, only gets a 1 count. Who you going for, Bob? The free thinker? Yeah, you know, I might actually be going for the free thinker too. No diss to the No Kings liberal, but here's my position. I know I don't like Elon. I know he doesn't align with my values in life. And I'm not sure I can trust No Kings liberal either, to be honest with you. I don't think our values necessarily align across the board. I think that the life or death situation of fighting fascism doesn't necessarily resonate with the No Kings liberals. They seem very tacit about it, that they're going to go through the mechanisms at hand. That free thinker's got a crippler crossface on Elon, the move that took out Daniel Benoit. Free thinker, buddy, let's loose. So yeah, I guess I'm pulling for the free thinker here too. I guess I hope that the free thinker will actually live up to the hype, but that's ridiculous. That's so stupid. I can't pull for him either. He's already corrupted and brainwashed as well. And maybe I'm corrupted and brainwashed. Maybe I'm the idiot. But of course I am the idiot, because I'm sitting here in the abandoned concrete factory at the edge of town commentating this Monday night rumble of the discourse for our live audience in attendance, but they don't hear my commentary. They're just here for the fight, basically. A bunch of horrible, wretched sociopaths who just want to watch people bludgeon each other. I'm here for the online version with a strong following of about 7 people. So, who's the fool? Elon? The liberal? The free thinker? Or Raven Mac? Very slow 2 count on that No Kings liberal. Jamel Bowie knows how his bread is buttered. Didn't go for the quick count on that one. Without the No Kings liberal reposting Jamel Bowie, he wouldn't be where he is today, talking in that damn little microphone. Good Lord. And he's climbing the ladder on top of a chair. I don't know what he's doing up there. Roll up on the No Kings liberal by Elon. A long 2 count. Even for Clarence Thomas standards, that was a long 2 count. So these final 3, they're really going at it. This thing is dragging on for a while. They opened that Wawa up by you, Bob? You got to get a cup of coffee on the ride home. I don't live too far from the abandoned factory here at the edge of town, folks, but my producer, Bob Dabalina, it's a couple-hour drive for him. God bless you, Bob. You do a great job every week. I appreciate you, bro. Oh, man, devastating DDT on the free thinker by Elon. Bob usually has a long ride home. I always tell him he can sleep on the couch at my house, but he doesn't like the cats, so he doesn't stay there. And then a reverse suplex on that No Kings liberal, but then Elon is right on the free thinker and then falls. A mess of meritocracy ladders in the ring. Suplex, but free thinker didn't execute it all the way on Elon, and now that No Kings liberal is going after him. Nice move on the free thinker. And No Kings liberal goes for the pin. That should be a 3, I would think. Yep, that's 3, so the free thinker is gone. And now we are left with the No Kings liberal and billionaire Elon Musk. So, of course, I got to say, got to go for that No Kings liberal. That ladder is right at the edge there. Another one sitting on the... Elon trying to slam, but he couldn't slam her. Slam her? I hardly know her. They both get up. No Kings liberal with a punch to Elon, and she's climbing that ladder at the edge of the ring. That's a precarious move. What is she doing now? Elon's going up too. They're both on that ladder, and he knocks her off, and That's the finale. Man, what a fall she took. That No Kings Liberal off the top of that ladder to the concrete floor. She is looking hurt, and Elon picking up one of those briefcases. I hope she's okay, folks. And that's how it ends, man. Let's look at that replay. So that No Kings Liberal knocks Elon down and then climbs this ladder. I don't know, that's a dangerous spot to be because you could fall out the ring where that ladder is sitting. And then Elon comes up. They're both on that thing, and then Elon knocks her off. So Elon Musk wins this thing this week, folks. That is how it ends. Let's look at tonight's results. 15 points for Elon. He eliminated 5 folks on top of getting the 10 bonus points. That is disgusting. No Kings Liberal with 9. That free thinker got 6 points. Fetterman, AOC, and Jeffries, Congress representing with 3 points each. The 2 points, Hassan Piker, podcast grifter, J.D. Vance, who came out and eliminated Donald Trump. And getting 1 point, you see a whole slew of people there, including Gerrymander, Barron Trump, and that third-party communist, of course, John Roberts, Man of the Week. Our standings after 2 of 7 events, Elon is at the top of the heap with 15 points. Luigi has 12. Gavin Newsom with 10. No Kings Liberal 9. Hakeem Jeffries with 8. Free Thinker. Reply Guy. We didn't see Reply Guy this week. He wasn't out here, but he's up there with 5. Second page results, Donald Trump with 4. Fetterman, Vance, AOC. You can see a slew of people there with 2, and a whole bunch of folks with 1 point after 2 weeks. Of course, we're going to do this for 5 more weeks, 4 more weeks. They'll be accumulating points, and then that 7th week will be our finale where the top 27 point getters come out. As always, folks, this is sponsored by my Southern Gothic Futurist Patreon. You can support that Patreon through the Patreon website. You can do that. You can follow it for free and get some updates. I did a couple updates this week for my free followers. I send stuff out to everybody. $1 level, $3 level, you get zines that I do. $5 level, you get postcards from me. You can do higher. I'm always looking for benefactors. There's a $100 level. If anybody wants to completely corrupt me and turn me evil, go ahead and fill in all those $100 levels. I am willing to sell my soul. I got to be honest. I'm getting older, moving slower. I am more than willing to sell my soul and compromise my principles to not die in debt. That's probably not true. I'm pretty stubborn and contrary, but I'll take your money and lie to you anyways. But anyways, that's how this goes, folks. That's week 2 in the books. Shout out to my producer, Bob Dabalina. Shout out to all the folks who messaged me after last week's return for the spring season. And it's my understanding we might have, what's the word on next week, Bob? So we will have a sponsor. We have a sponsor lined up for next week, but you could be a secondary sponsor. You can sponsor the rest of the season. Reach out to me. We got to monetize everything because capitalism is collapsing, and we're all trying to pretend that we can pay our bills and be okay, even though most of our bills are a social construct, and this is all bullshit, and we really should just be sitting outside in our skimpiest clothes and enjoying our lives the most we can. I don't guess that's on the ballot, though, is it? I don't see no party representing that one, boy. Anyways, this is your boy Dirt God. I'm out of here. Till next week, salam.